Okay, team, book 1, chapter 8. We are in Moscow. I get Moscow and St. Petersburg mixed up. The first 6 chapters were in St. Petersburg. But we are in Moscow at the Rostovs. The afternoon, there's a naming day celebration for the Countess and her youngest daughter, Natalia. And this chapter introduces us to the children, and it's really kind of a fun chapter. It just adds a whole new dimension to the experiences of humanity and being human and seeing these children and this family. It's like not knowing the color green, and then just all of a sudden the color green appears. It's just this whole undescribable wonderfulness as the lives and thinking and emotions of these children are woven in to this story here. And I just want to again underline the respect and context of the Countess Rostov, Natalia Rostova, having given birth to, I think it was 12 or 13 children, and now we see the ones who had survived. And not only the physiological drain that had on her body, but we haven't yet read much about it, but just the psychological burden, the anxiety of all those years of worrying about children, loving them, having them die, and worrying about the ones that live. And this is just always on my mind in the context of the Countess. As we learn more about their family and interact with this family, again, I just wanted to underline that as a contextual piece. And so we're at this afternoon. There's just this last visiting mother and daughter. They're the last ones there to leave before the evening, and later in the evening there's this supper where most of these guests will return. So there's just this one last guest there. And the children, all the children appear on the scene. Suddenly from the next room were heard the footsteps of boys and girls running to the door. The crash of a chair knocked over, then a girl of 13, hiding something in the folds of her short skirt, darted in and stopped short in the middle of the room. It was obvious that her precipitous flight had carried her farther into the room than she had intended. The Count jumped up, held out his arms, and with his swaying gait went forward to take the little girl in his embrace. "Ah, here she is," he exclaimed, laughing. "The little name-day girl, my darling." And so right away you kind of get this vibe of a happy family, perhaps. We'll need to read more, but just this father's bubbling over with joy and can express his love for her freely. The little girl, not pretty but full of life, with her black eyes and wide mouth, her childish shoulders, from which the bodice had slipped in her rapid flight, black curls tossed back, slender bare arms, little legs encased in lace pantaloons, and feet in low slippers. She was at that charming age when the girl was no longer a child and the child was not yet a woman. And escaping from her father's embrace, she ran to her mother, and not paying the least attention to her severe remark. Just a paragraph earlier, her mother says, "Ah, there's a time for everything," said the Countess with feigned severity. "You're always spoiling her, Ilya," she added to her husband. So she's like, her husband's just like, "Oh, this is the best thing in the world." And the Countess is like, "Oh, you're always spoiling her." But it's like she's, it's like this inside joke. It's not at all a severe reprimand. Natasha could say no more. Everything seemed funny to her. She sank onto her mother's lap and went off into such peals of laughter that even the visitor could not help joining in. And so this here is another person just full of sunshine, and it's just contagious. Meanwhile, the other members of the younger generation, so we have Anna Mikhailova's son Boris. Remember, Boris and his mother lived there with the Rostovs. He was one of the ones who came in with this younger group. And then Nikolai, that's the oldest son of the Count. And Sonia, that's a niece of the Count. And Petrushka, that's the youngest son. They had all taken seats in the drawing room and were obviously trying to keep within the bounds of decorum the vivacity and merriment that radiated from the features of their faces. So they're obviously just having a hoot of a good time together. They come bounding into this room with these adults. They know there's a sense of decorum they have to, and they're just trying to compose themselves, but just sort of glancing at each other and laughing. And I find this, it's a context that's very familiar today. If you've had children, or if you even remember being a child yourself, if you're so lucky to just be full of life and kind of interacting with this adult world, and for a day, a moment, not having a care in the world, and just being full of wonder and life and laughter. Now and then they exchanged glances, hardly able to restrain their laughter. And then we get a little bit of a description about the contrast between Nikolai and Boris. Nikolai. The two young men, the student and the officer, had been friends from childhood. So they're friends, and though of the same age and both handsome, were not at all alike. Boris was tall and fair, with delicate, regular features, and looked of composure on his handsome face. So Boris was a little bit more of a composed fellow. Nikolai, however, was short, curly-headed young man. His whole face expressed impetuosity and enthusiasm. Nikolai blushed when he entered the drawing room. Apparently he had tried without success to find something to say. Boris, on the contrary, was instantly at ease. And so we get this contrast between Boris and Nikolai, and the thing that stands out to me is that Nikolai's just really on this verge of wanting to be an adult and wanting to be considered as an adult, and maybe is a little more self-conscious and wants to be respected, but he's just in this transition phase from childhood or young youth to maybe being respected and spoken to and taken seriously. And so you get this sense he's a little more defensive and self-conscious in this way. Anyway, I just love this introduction to this children. It just adds another dimension to this book. Not only seeing the adults interact with them, but the children themselves, and how these children grow up to be young men or young women, like Pierre or Andre or Ellen or Lisa. So we have kind of a little bit of an older generation, Prince Vasily, Anna Pavlovna. We have these young adults, and each of them you can just empathize with and cheer for. And then you get this play of this youthful vivaciousness of these children. And I found this little brief chapter, but it was just really a joy to read.